Peace, love, knowledge, and freedom. And welcome to another episode of So Frail Conversations. Hopefully, you've read the book already. So Frail, a reality of black male masculinity. And So Frail, too, toxic femininity. It's a little bit of it in there. But if not, no harm, no foul. But today, the topic of discussion is going to be the warrior spirit. And considering just the way things have been going in light of just recent recent things in the media that I've been noticing that have been going on, I try not to give it too much energy and too much credence in my life, but it's a point of expression because in regards to where we stand as men, in many regards, our warrior spirit is kind of it's diminishing. I'm not going to say it's dead. I'm not going to say it's gone 100%, but I'm going to say it's diminishing, and it's been misrepresented in, our upbringing and, how we grow up. I've noticed that I don't necessarily want to use the word soft, but I do want to say that in many regards, when it comes to the warrior spirit, that dynamic is obsolete. And by no means am I saying things of, men have become cowards or things like that. It's deeper. When I'm talking about the warrior spirit, there's a specific component to the warrior spirit that is lacking, which makes our warrior spirit not thrive as high as it is. And granted, I get it whether we're coming from a historical perspective or however we're looking at it, that everybody necessarily wasn't a warrior. Everybody didn't fight the war. Everybody didn't go, and put that foot forward. You actually had a warrior class of men, then you had a scholarly class of men. But one thing that cannot be erased is the fact that even with the warrior spirit, there's a specific component that was found within all men, and being found within all men, it gave us all the potential to be warriors. It gave us all the potential to, be in that realm of warriorhood in order to, protect our people, to protect our children, to protect our families. But in modern times, I've come to observe that warrior spirit is kind of gone, and there's several factors that I'll be discussing going into it of, the differences between the warrior spirit, like what we actually embody right now, what other things are being played out in real time. So before we get started, as always, follow me on Instagram at just sing _. What's my Instagram, John? Oh, it's _just sing _ my bad. You can follow me there. You can also follow my merchandise page at Just Sings Merch, and you can follow my plant-based living class at the Hitting It Raw program. Sorry, I don't know where my mind is right now. It was something else. I forgot. So that'll be what we'll be discussing today, the warrior spirit. When we come back, I'm gonna have everything. I'm gonna have my thoughts in order. I'm gonna have thoughts in order a while right now. But yeah, so running back. So follow me on Instagram at _just sing _ Follow my merchandise at Just Sings Merch, and follow my plant-based living class at the Hitting It Raw program. Also, be sure to get the books So Frail, a reality of black male masculinity, So Frail 2, toxic femininity, and the Hitting It Raw, living the raw plant-based lifestyle for life. Books available everywhere. Everywhere books are sold online. You can always get them. And if you're following my social media page, you just simply click the links in the bio, and it'll take you directly to them. So with that said, we're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna get everything together so I can come back straight, and then we're gonna get started on the warrior spirit. Oh yeah, and don't forget to visit IamJustSing.com. There, you can get all things Just Sing. You want to add the So Frail series to your library? Visit IamJustSing.com. You want to learn how to master the market for serious trading and investing? Visit IamJustSing.com. You want to get your hands on some exclusive merch like tees, hoodies, coffee mugs, hats, bags? Visit IamJustSing.com. Are you thinking about transitioning into the plant-based lifestyle? visit IamJustSeen.com. You ever want to just chat with Seen about anything from simple advice to mentorship? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Anything and everything that is me, you can find at IamJustSeen.com. So just take a quick peek into my world and see why being just seen is nothing less but always more. Because you never really know what you need until you see it. You will never see it unless you visit IamJustSeen.com. All right. Welcome back. And I want to dive straight into this because this is a very, very important topic that I see that we need to discuss, because in many regards, our warrior spirit has not only been stripped, but in addition to being stripped, it is constantly manipulated and used for other people's gain. It's exploited. I'll say that it's exploited. And it's typically exploited, within the athlete. So it's no mystery. It's damn near evident that, our warrior spirit, our warrior class all play sports. They're all athletes, and you can look at the physiques, you can look at everything that they embody as being, the cornerstone of physicality, physical strength. But as I was always saying, the warrior spirit goes deeper than that. The warrior spirit goes deeper than that. It has a mental component that is tied into it. So I'm using that to set the tone as to, what happens with our warrior spirit, where our warrior spirit goes, and why it's, of course, not being used by us, but it's being exploited by others. Not only being exploited, but it's being capitalized on. First things first, when I say that our warrior spirit is gone, I'm not, saying that, we bitches and shit like that. I'm not saying that we're soft, but I'm saying that the true essence of what the warrior spirit represents it's been taken away. And in the light of it being taken away, it's being expressed in a different perspective. So to the ways that in which I define it, okay, you have the warrior spirit, and then from that essence, you're either going to get a warrior or you're going to get a barbarian. You feel what I'm saying? And like I said, I go in crazy detail with these in So Frail and So Frail 2. But when it comes to that dynamic, that polarity of the warrior and the barbarian, the essence is the same. However, the expression is different. And the expression is different because a barbarian is more they're both like set for war, but a barbarian is more they lack the thought process behind it. A warrior thinks and executes. A warrior is calculated. A warrior uses their mentality first before they have to use their physicality. A barbarian simply uses their physicality without the thoughts of the mentality. And when we look at our warrior class, has been divided up into two perspectives. Like I said, between the warrior and a barbarian, but this is evident within. You have your athletes, you have those that become athletes and they have the athletic, and then you have those that become, I'm gonna say, gang members, gangbangers and shit. They still operate from their warrior perspective. However, they're operating it from the expression of barbarianism, and am I saying that, oh no, they don't think or no shit like that? Like, nah, some people are still calculating thought. However, with the barbarian having his thought process not factored into it, that's where you get, gang shit. That's when you get, gangster life and shit. And collectively, there's still nothing wrong because it's still a realm of brotherhood. It's still a realm of camaraderie. However, it's fueled differently. So if you could take a warrior, right? You could take a warrior and you strip him of his mentality, and you strip him of his ability or his desire to want to think before responding. You're going to get a gangster. You feel what I'm saying? But there's other factors that play into it. So if you take a warrior and you strip him of his identity, strip him of his mentality, and you infuse him with self-hate, that's when you're going to get the barbarian. That's why it's like we operate from this perspective that, we can respond barbarically to each other. to what looks like us in the mirror and shit. You feel what I'm saying? Like, listen to the music. The gangster music is, you know, art imitates reality. You feel me? Every time. So the artistry of gangster rap, of when that started, like gangster rap is the only genre of music, of the hip hop music um, extension that has never been, it has never been shunned. You know what I mean? Like in the beginning, it was like, okay, you know, we can't let you guys sing songs about killing and doing all this other shit, until it was known that it incites the energy to make you do it to each other. You feel what I'm saying? So it's a self-destructive thing, you know, because when you infuse a warrior spirit with self-hatred, it becomes a barbarian, and he's going to kill himself, you know, not in the sense of suicide, but I mean in the sense of genocide. You know, he's going to kill what looks like him without even thinking twice about it. But his true enemy, a warrior knows his true enemy. A warrior is not confused by who his enemy is. He's going to respond to that very being. So, you know, in this expression, I'm going to use example. Like, I'm not promoting it. I'm not condoning it, and I'm not telling anybody or inciting anybody to go do this, but I'm simply asking, why not? You see what I'm saying? Like, you have an opposition, right? Your ops or whatnot. And say you're a Crip, your ops are Bloods, or you're a Blood, your ops are Crips, right? But as a black man, your op in the time of war would be the police. You feel what I'm saying? But we don't respond to police the same way that we respond to gang members. Now, I get it. It's like, okay, we can look at it and say, okay, well, there's jail time involved. They have a bigger military. I mean, the police force is technically a military in the same, but you know, the police force is, they're ruled by the barbarianism too. You feel what I'm saying? They don't, like, when you're like, you got to really think about this. Like, when you're infused, when you're trained to own it, you're trained to have a gun, trained to respond to civilians. Like, you're trained for this shit. You're trained for this shit, and yet you're still fearful. Yet you still go into the situation like without thinking. You just squeeze first, ask questions last. You feel me? That's a barbaric mentality, and we're also on the barbaric mentality too when we're in that gang life. You know, and I say that shit. If you strip the details away from a motherfucker, and you strip the details away from a gang member, you strip the details from a cop, and you see that a black man was killed, it has the same tendencies into it. You know, it kind of has the same energy behind what invoked it to happen. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like a warrior would know my defined enemy has been trying to kill me for over 400 years. You feel me? But a barbarian is just like, all right, whatever. I'm going to kill whoever as long as I stay alive. You feel me? So that's when we have these ops. Like, I seen a conversation with somebody, and it was like, dude, he was in a blood gang or whatnot. And of course, you know, the Bloods beef with the Crips. So the cops wanted his help to take down this Crip gang. And his words were, the friend of my enemy is my friend. So here's where the quandary comes in. And this is where I get on to the warrior spirit about the mentality being gone, and then you having the self-hatred. They're both your defined enemy. You feel me? They're both your defined enemy. The cops are still going to be the enemies to the Bloods, and the Crips are going to be the enemies to the Bloods. But the choice that you made was not off of, you know, your own personal survival. You feel me? Now this is promoting genocide, your own personal genocide, because you're saying, I would rather help the police, you know, against this enemy than rather help this enemy against the police, you know? And that's how that, you know, that plays out. You know, we don't consciously think about that, you know, because we have been infused with the barbaric mentality. So when you look at the culture, yeah, we'll say fuck 12, we'll say fuck the police, you know, we can say that, but we won't respond to the police the same way we respond to the enemies that we had defined that look like us. You feel what I'm saying? So that is where that delineation comes in between the warrior spirit and the barbarian. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like, going forward, you now have to see, how do you respond in that light. And that's where, and the reason why this is tied into so frail, because that is a part of what masculinity has become, what has become the face of masculinity. You feel me? That barbaric shit. You feel me? That barbaric shit. You know, women tend to, like, when women tend to fall for the bad boy, what is he usually doing? He does destructive shit. You know, he does destructive shit. And but the reason why it's like that, it's not from a detailed perspective, it seems like, yo, that's fucked up. Like, women are always gonna go, like, dudes bitch about it all the time, you know, on social media. Nobody likes the guy who's this. Like, well, it's not that she didn't like the square. She didn't like the idea that the square lacked physical masculinity that she could see. You feel what I'm saying? So we got to express that, or we got to understand that. You feel what I'm saying? If she cannot see off rip that you would fight for her, if she cannot see off rip, like, the biggest thing when it comes to relationships, women want safety. They want to know that they're safe. You feel me? They want to know that they're safe. So if you've been stripped of your warriorhood, you feel what I'm saying, and you don't respond, like, you're more passive, she's not really going to fuck with you. You feel me? She's not really going to fuck with you. But this is why women involve themselves with the barbaric type, because it's like, I know he'll pop off. I know he'll do some shit. You feel me? I know he'll come off. If somebody says something, he'll do X, Y, and Z. You know, and this is not to say that the other person won't, but the barbarian is going to do it faster. You feel me? But see, our warrior spirit, it calculates first. It'll still respond the same way. A warrior and a barbarian is still to kill you. You feel me? But the warrior then ensures that when shit pops off, when I have to exhibit my warrior behavior, I'm not going to end up a casualty. You feel me? The barbarian doesn't give a fuck. So that's why it's like, within this duality, you now have two different fuels. A warrior lives for shit. Barbarians will die for it. You feel what I'm saying? That is a very, very important internalization. That I die for this shit. I live for it. I was watching their poetry jam, and Black Ice said, I challenge you to find something worth dying for and live for it. You feel what I'm saying? And that changes your perspective, because if I'm living for something, the war changes. The manner in which I fight, the manner in which I go forth in life, it changes if I'm living for it. Because I can't die in vain. You feel me? I can't die in vain. It's like you have that balance between the warrior becomes a legend and the barbarian becomes a martyr. You feel me? The barbaric mentality becomes a martyr. I die for this shit. Like, their intent, in essence, will be to die. Like I was talking about in the podcast episode off of intentions. I was talking about how whatever your unconscious mind internalizes, that's what you act out. You feel what I'm saying? So if you're active, if you unconsciously internalize that you would die for something, you move in the way according to death. But if you internalize, I'm going to live for it, you move according to life. You feel what I'm saying? So that's how it easily gets, the lines easily get blurred, and we get caught up in that, you know, and we think we're still being warriors. I'm a soldier. I'm this. Is like, nah, the warrior has a different energy behind him. He has a different expression of his energy. The barbarian doesn't. You feel what I'm saying? So now we assimilated into the culture and shit, you know, integration. Fucking biggest mistake of our collective that I can think that we ever had, because when we assimilated, we started to take on the tendencies of the people we were assimilating to, who we thought were the leaders, who we thought were in front, and so we picked up their mentality. So if they have this viewpoint about us, about black men, we internalize that same viewpoint about black men. You feel what I'm saying? So we see each other like that. We see each other as opposition, and we respond to each other that way. You feel what I'm saying? We respond to each other that way. But it's deeper constructs that I'll get into a little bit later that kind of tie into that. But I just wanted to make it clear the distinction between a warrior and a barbarian, and why it's promoted. But then even still, the reason why it can maintain itself is because of our women. You feel what I'm saying? As I said, our women are looking for that masculine source that they can feel. they can feel that they will be protected in. You feel what I'm saying? They can feel that they will be protected with. And that's why they feel protected with the gangster. That's why they feel protected with a thug. That's why they feel protected with a person who comes off like that, because it's like, I know he'll pop off. You feel what I'm saying? A warrior is more reserved. A warrior is more reserved. You know what I mean? They fight when they have to, but when they do, you're going to get the full gamut. You're going to get everything that comes behind it. You know what I'm saying? Same with the barbarian. However, the barbarian doesn't have to be pushed. You feel what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be pushed. But when it is, you know what I'm saying? And it takes, it takes really much of nothing for it to happen. You feel what I'm saying? So that's where we have to understand our culture from that. And that's why it's like, when we look at, like, there's an association. You feel me? The most manliest of men, the manliest. Now, this is, as if you watch previous episodes, you know what I'm talking about. There's a difference between manliness and masculinity. But the manliest of men are kind of like, they're the poster boy for that is barbarianism. You feel what I'm saying? The poster boy of that is barbarianism. So you have a certain look, you have a certain carry, a certain build within yourself to give off that, yo, I'll fuck somebody up. Like, you have to express on a regular basis, like, that I'll fuck somebody up or some shit like that. So women get with that. But then women have to also keep that, there's that double-edged sword, because they want that. But then the barbarian doesn't delineate to say, the barbarian doesn't delineate to where it says, who won't I fuck up? So you'll fuck up a woman too, if she's in a threat within the barbaric mentality. You dig what I'm saying? Like, when that accompanies it, it's like, that's why, a man will fight a woman, he'll fight a man, but then it's like, yo, you'll fight a woman too. It's not that. It's he's fighting a threat. And in a barbaric mentality, I'm gonna fight whatever's in opposition to me. You feel what I'm saying? Warriors only fight those that are in war, those that are capable of war. But then you have to look at the barbarian. They're gonna fight everything. It's a desecration. You kill everything. And I catch flack for this all the time, but I don't give a fuck, because it's a reality. People have to realize that it comes from the religious internalization that we take in. The religious mind strips the warrior spirit, and it can transition a warrior into a barbarian. Because look at it like a true warrior only fights wars. They only fight warriors in a war. You feel what I'm saying? And that's who they reserve the fighting for, the warrior class. So if you study history and you go into wars or whatnot, you will see that the war itself was only fought between the warriors, and like, they meet up on a mutual ground, scrapped out, did whatever they had to do, and that was it. If whoever lost, of course, they would go capture them or whatnot. But then let's say they would take them into slaves, and this is a very, very blurred line that always happens. They'd be like, well, our ancestors had slaves and they sold them off. They had slaves from a mutual altercation between warriors, and then whoever lost, they took them in. But when they took these slaves in, they took them in kind of like as family, like you lived with them. There were no shackles, there were no mutilations, castrations, there was none of that shit. That was a barbaric mentality. So when you look at that, this is why I say it comes from a religious construct, because when you read the religious doctrines, it will tell you, and when the deity that you serve, whichever one it is, when the deity that you serve sent you to battle, it told you in specific, clear instructions to murder and kill, put to the sword, every man, woman, child, and cattle on the land. You kill everything. That's barbaric. The man, woman, child, like the warrior class, I get them. But then just the random men, the women, and then you take the women, the virgins, as spoils of war, booty. You take them as your own. You feel what I'm saying? Those aren't warriors, those are barbarians. You desecrate everything. You kill the whole land. But again, it's justified because the religious context says this is what it is. These people are evil. And it's like, when you go to war off of religious, like, you justify all of the damage and the fucked up shit you're about to do with that. Because this being says, that's why it's very important that if you look at the major wars that are occurring, there's a religious head above it. There's some kind of deity above it. You feel what I'm saying? There's some kind of deity above it to justify everything. That's why, like, the major nations are under a certain deity. You feel me? But I'm not going to get too heavy into that because that's a conversation that will run its course sometime down the line. But yeah, so when we internalize that and we take that in, we now operate life through that. You know, when we define our masculinity, we define it through barbarianism. So this is why it's like, just look at it from a high school love type thing. You get the cheerleader, who is the cheerleader is like the cheerleader and the football player are like perfect examples of the physical expression of trying to find a balance between masculinity and femininity. But you're doing it from a physical perspective. So you get the small little petite cheerleader who's, who's very pretty and, she's not too aggressive or anything like that. But then you get the macho football player, the jock or whatever the case may be you call them. You get that person and they build the relationship. Why? Because the woman automatically sees, okay, he's physical on the field. He can do all this. Like, that's who gets the girls. But that's why they get the girls. Or you get the bad boy who's fighting all the time, who's in the gang, who likes the dark side. But the bad boy, at the end of the day, the bad boy is going to reign supreme over the athlete because he still has that resistance to authority that women like. Women like that too. If you're willing to resist authority, that is why, because it's like, I know that when crunch time hits, if you're willing to resist authority, if authority is in opposition to me, I know that you can protect me. I know that you will protect me. You feel what I'm saying? And so that's how that delineation comes in. But that's why I say the missing piece between a barbarian and a warrior is rationale and irrationality. You feel me? The barbarian operates through irrationality. The warrior operates through rationale. If I know that I have this enemy, you feel me? If I know that this person is my op, then, I'm going to respond according to that, but I'm going to be calculated. If you read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, right? He talks about, a warrior doesn't fight until he knows that he's going to secure the win. You feel me? If I don't know that I'm going to win this, I'm not going to go to battle. But a barbarian automatically assumes I'm going to fuck it up. I'm going to win this, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to win it. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like, you look at, you look at the men who like, when we grew up, I used to say it myself when I was young, I fight anybody. I ain't no bitch. I could fight anybody, but sometimes that's not the opposition. That's not the case. Sometimes a warrior will know when not to fight, but a barbarian will never see that. I will fight anytime. You feel me? And it can escalate to other things. So it's like that warrior spirit, then the warrior spirit is fueled with rationale, and the barbarian spirit is fueled with irrationality. This is why, backtracking a little bit, while I was expressing how within that realm you have the self-hatred in it, and the barbarian will just do whatever. But it's like somehow when it comes to a real enemy, a real threat, the barbarian doesn't respond to it. Because it can only respond to what it knows. You know what I'm saying? And that's a lot of where the delineation is between our warrior spirit and what it has become. So on the face and on the surface, you dig what I'm saying? We operate as, mainly the barbarians under the guise that's what makes us masculine. That makes us manly. Women like, and that's why I'm like, we have to get above the carnal expression of just a man has to be able to protect and provide. Because he has to be able to protect and provide with the level of rationale. You feel what I mean? And this also is going into the very same guys who say, well, women, only want it, like, you got to toughen up. They want the barbarian because of that. You feel me? I grew up, I was a very nerdy kid by definition. I played, I traded Pokemon cards. I played with Game Boys and shit. You feel what I'm saying? I kept my grades up in school, like on that aspect. But where I grew up with barbarians. Like, I grew up with the barbarian class. Like, but I knew at that point we were the warrior class. We were the warrior class. We would go to open fields and play football. You feel what I'm saying? Like all of the kids, but we was hitting. Like, you feel me? Play sports and shit. Then we would also slap box. We would slap box. We would put the gloves on and box each other to spar and shit. Like, we did that. You feel what I'm saying? So I was able to get, both dynamics of that shit. But one of the hardest parts is that intelligence factor. an intelligent barbarian by default would have to become a warrior because of the energy is the same. But we strip that intelligence because it's like, you know, we make that a taboo thing for us as men, which in essence will strip our warrior spirit. You feel what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna say strip it yet because there's other things that strip it. So, but right now it transitions it into the barbarian perspective. You feel what I'm saying? It transitions it into that barbarian perspective. You know, we're just impulsive, reactionary. We're not proactive, you know, and we're not calculated in what we do. We just respond. You feel me? This is why, like, when beef pops off and shit, and motherfuckers go do a drive-by, innocent bystanders get hit because the beef is, you know, I terminate everything. But then, like I said, when you go back into that religious component, and then you know that the deities ordain you to put all men, women, children, sword, and all men, women, children, and cattle to the sword. Fast forward to where we are right now. You feel me? When you go shoot somebody up, when you go shoot up the block, you don't even care if you don't hit your target. You feel me? You're hitting everything around. Babies get hit. People that ain't got shit to do with the problem get hit. Like, a whole bunch of unnecessary shit occurs and transpires. You feel me? Because this is the barbaric culture. And as I said, the barbaric culture, when you infuse, because you assimilated into a culture that hated you, you develop the self-hatred. So your warrior class becomes barbarians. And they only kill themselves. They commit genocide. You feel me? They commit genocide. But then the ones who know who the defined enemy is and they work against that, they're criminals. They're criminals, they're rebels, they're, you know, the revolutionaries. But, you know, we have to find that gap. We have to find it and close it and bridge it and restructure that. You feel what I'm saying? Otherwise, we'll continue with the delineation, you know. Hey, huddle up, broskies, because it's time to elevate. The secret to evolving masculinity is to define it, understand it, then apply it. The So Frail series defines masculinity as the spiritual, mental, and physical embodiment of the essence of analysis and deconstruction. From this definition, I explain how masculinity is not just the hat that we wear, but it's the essence that we must exude through application. If you enjoy the So Frail conversations, why not read the books that inspire them? Visit IamJustSeeing.com right now to add the So Frail series to your library to get a better understanding of what masculinity really is. I promise. After reading So Frail, you will never look at masculinity the same again. So you have that aspect of the warrior spirit being transformed into barbarism. And then you have the aspect of where the warrior spirit is gone. You dig what I'm saying? The warrior spirit is gone. And again, I'm liable to catch flack for this because these things are very pertinent and they're important. You feel me? But it has to be discussed. Like, I really don't give a fuck about the flack as long as, you know what I'm saying, it's understood. Because then you have the dynamic in which our warrior spirit is gone. You feel me? Our warrior spirit is gone. Well, we lose the fight. Like, we don't even have the mental capacity to fight. We don't even have the desire to want to fight for anything. You feel what I'm saying? And that comes in with several, again, it's a religious construct that has stripped it. You feel what I'm saying? In order to kill a warrior, you have to give them some kind of religion that teaches them not to fight. You have to give them some kind of spiritual connection, a spiritual, you know, separation and distinction that teaches him not to fight. You feel what I'm saying? Teaches him not to fight at all. Like, he loses all ounce of fight. And I can go on for days and days on certain examples of what it is, but when you look at a lot of the religious construct, you know, it kills the warrior spirit. It kills it. So, like, you had the emasculation, and it's crazy because, like, when religion was infused within our people, it always came as an extension of slavery. But in the slavery in which it came, it was the chattel slavery. It was the fucked up part of slavery. It came to us in an extension that was first meant to dehumanize us and then give us the religion. And then in the moment for the warrior class, they did bug breaking. They did all kind of castrations and emasculations to kill the warrior spirit. But then they put the icing on the cake by giving them, you know, the religious tenets that told you not to respond a certain way. You feel me? Not to respond against slave masters, not to respond against the people that gave it to you. You know, if they told whatever they told you to do, like, so here's one in particular. If you seen Django, you had the Mandingo fighting where the two men, these motherfuckers is big as shit. Leonardo DiCaprio, the slave master that he played, he really was not there. He was just stronger than them mentally. Physically, he could not have fucked with them, either one of them. But the two slave masters had these Mandigos fighting each other or whatnot, breaking arms and all that shit, but they would not respond to him. But then when you look at the religious tenets, there's a, you know, in the Bible, they have slaves honor. It's in Ephesians. It says slaves honor your slave masters as if you would Jesus Christ. That's a very, very, very powerful line, as small as it is, because it's like, you know, no matter what you do to me, I gotta honor you. Your warrior spirit says, you know, when the logic kicks in and the rationale behind your warrior spirit, it says, if this is trying to kill me, I should kill it. The first rule of human survival is self-preservation. That's the first law of nature. We've drifted away from nature, but the first law of nature is self-preservation. But something has convinced me not to preserve myself against an enemy, a defined enemy, right? So now we go over that. So now we say, okay, that's not really my enemy, because I got to honor him. And I get some people have never read the book A Day in Their Life, but there's this thing called the Akashic Records, you know, and there's this unconscious spiritual connection that we have when things are passed down through our genetic memory. You feel what I'm saying? So if you lived a life where somebody actually read that, it's imprinted in your DNA code, and it's imprinted in your DNA code to where when they have the children and it passes down, you don't even have to read the shit anymore. You just are in an inherent state of fear because of what happened 400 or 500 years ago. You feel what I'm saying? Almost 1,200 years ago, if you look at the trans-Saharan slave trade with Islam. But those points are very, very important, because now they can fuse within us. We can and another point is that it's like, okay, so when we look at that, now we go into, let's say, forgive your enemy, love your enemy, turn the cheek to your enemy, right? It's like, damn, that's some bullshit. You can't be a warrior turning the cheek to your enemy. How are you going to go to war? How are you going to go to war? You can't. You cannot be a warrior to fight for your people if you're turning the cheek to the enemy that is killing your people. Something has to give. So it's like, that was strategically done, and it continues to play itself out. It continues to have relevance and precedence amongst our people. You feel what I'm saying? But at the same time, that's why it's okay to be that's why the barbarian is okay to be forced, because in the barbarian, you're responding against yourself. You're responding against yourself. And how are you able to respond against yourself? By another ideology found within the religious tenets that, you know, you spare the rod, you spoil the child. You feel what I'm saying? You spare the rod, you spoil the child. So now, just off of these two principles, I turn the cheek to my enemy, but if I spare the rod and I spoil the child, to use the rod of correction on your child. So you beat your children. You feel what I'm saying? But your children are extensions of you. They look just like you. So now, this children now, as our melanated people, we see things on all different levels, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. So when you look at it from the spiritual perspective, you understand that the children are necessarily not your biological children as well, but the offshoots that come from you. You dig what I'm saying? And you understand that you are a child of something that preceded you. You dig what I'm saying? So when you're to turn your cheek to your enemy, you feel me? But you're supposed to use the rod of correction to your children. So then you pray and you plead, forgive them, because they know not what they do. But your child knows what they do, and they're young, like they're less experienced in this world than you. You feel what I'm saying? You barbarically respond to your children, you know? And then it's like, when we get older, if we receive that trauma as children, when we get older, we exhibit that trauma. And then we say the same dumb shit. Well, it happened to me when I was young. That does not make it okay. That does not make it right. You feel me? But yet you won't respond to the very enemy that's kicking your teeth in, because you then believe another aspect of it, that your enemies will be your footstool. You feel what I'm saying? Your enemies will be your footstool, yet your enemy is allowed to kick the shit out of you. You feel what I'm saying? So those components right there, when you infuse that within, like, that's what happens to our warrior spirit. This is why it's like women who, See, the rationale always follow emotionality, which means masculinity is always going to follow femininity, which in core means that men will always follow women. Like, we have to consciously do this shit to where men are the leaders and men are in the front. You know, we co-create and we work together. You feel what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that women are ahead of us, because we have to break that if you're not with me, you're against me mentality. If I'm not with you, then I'm just not with you. I'm not against you either. But we operate from this perspective that if I say, you know, men, like, if I say that the masculinity is supposed to follow the femininity, then people are going to say, well, women are supposed to be leading. No, that's not what the fuck I'm saying. We're supposed to be going in the same direction together. But what I mean is that when rationale follows emotionality, it's because rationale quells emotionality. You feel what I'm saying? It keeps it from being as volatile as it is. You feel what I'm saying? So when we look at women who typically fall for men that aren't in the church, they fall for men who aren't in academia, they fall for men who have that bad boy wild urge within them. That's why. Because they're looking for that masculine template, that masculine feel, and they're finding it in barbarism, because that is the only thing that isn't stripped away. You feel what I'm saying? That isn't the only thing that's stripped away, because the religious construct does not, it's kind of contradictory and ironic that the religious construct doesn't allow for the barbarian to thrive, but it promotes barbarianism simultaneously. It's a very, very huge mindfuck. You feel what I'm saying? So when we, like I said, when we look at things like, you know, you reconcile with your enemy, turn a cheek to him. I'm going to give you the second cheek to hit. You feel me? We out of cheeks. They slapped the left one, slapped the right one. Now they're kicking us in the ass. All the cheeks are gone. You feel what I'm saying? But you spare the rod, you spoil the child. That means you physically attack the extensions of you. The extensions of you then will be yourself, will be what you see in yourself, what you see in other people. You physically attack that. You're permitted to physically attack that with unrelenting force. Unrelenting force. We laugh at it through our traumas, you know, because we're trying to find the joy in the pain. But we were fucked up. A lot of us were fucked up as kids. Our parents were fucked up as kids. Their parents were fucked up as kids. And what they do, they continue to fuck up the kids. You feel what I'm saying? Continue to fuck up the kids. But you won't fuck up your enemy. Like, you're defined in, I'm going to pray for you. You know, I'm going to let whatever deity handle you. Because now you put the icing on the cake with the one line, you know, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Feel me? That is a very, very important piece, because that, if there was any hope for a warrior to be kept in that realm, it would be diminished with that line. Because, hear me well, you cannot go to war without a vengeful mind. You can't. That's the purpose of war. You're seeking retribution. You're seeking some kind of resolve for a wrong. That's vengeance. You cannot be a warrior without a vengeful mind. You know, I catch it for this when I say, you know, I have yet to see a warrior in a religion. You know, yeah, don't get me wrong. You have the people that will kill for their religion. But how many people will go to war and do what they're supposed to do for the sake of morality, for the sake of it being right, for the sake of it being something that you're actually supposed to do? Not something that you're told to do, but something that you know is actually right. Or not fighting because you know something is, you know, inherently not right. Like, you know, your soul tells you it, you know, you feel me? But you justify the other shit. So when you say vengeance is mine, you know, saith the Lord, and you move according to that, you can't be a warrior. You can't be a warrior. You know, that's why it's like when women get with a religious man, it's like you're gonna get either the misogynist who's going to, you know, damage you 100%, or you're gonna get a coward who wouldn't fight for you, who wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. You feel what I'm saying? And that shit makes you like that. You feel me? I can only speak from my own personal perspective. You feel me? It was when I actually dove into religion and I started studying it and I started applying it to my life and 100% like that, I became soft. I became very passive. You know, I became very passive to the point where it would be like, I'll pray for you before I slap the shit out of you for wronging me. At a time when, from the barbaric perspective, like I grew up, like if one of my homies did something wrong to, I slapped the shit out of them. You feel me? If I did something wrong to them and they felt the need to slap the shit out of me, we'll have to fight it out. You feel me? And you ain't just gonna slap me like that. But at the same time, when you look at it from that perspective of the barbarian, like you have to have a vengeful mind to do some shit like that. You feel me? Vengeance fuels war. Vengeance fuels war. But the warrior is the one who can channel the vengeance into the right dynamic and not let it blind his reality. The barbarian takes vengeance and runs with it. The warrior takes that vengeance, channels it, uses the intellect, and then fights war according to that. That's the fuel that pushes them through. Vengeance is the fuel that pushes them through. So if vengeance doesn't even belong to me, how can I call myself a warrior? You feel what I'm saying? And so that goes into the point that I was saying, like when women, find these men, it's like now I'm just looking for safety. I'm looking for safety. Like I want to be protected, but then it's like now I'm going into this realm where now I have to be protected. I have to be protected by a man who needs permission from other men to protect. You feel what I'm saying? That's what the religious construct does to you. Like let's break down a hierarchy. Now, depending on whichever one you go to, it kind of goes like this. You have the deity, you have the deity's son, or the messenger that the deity sent. Then you have the intercessors, whether they be pastors, deacons, bishops, imams, whatever the case may be. You have those in between you. And then you have your woman. Then you have your children and all of that shit. So there's a hierarchy. So there's depending on the context, there's about 3 men above your man when you submit to him. Supposedly when you submit. You feel what I'm saying? How can you call yourself a warrior? How can you call yourself a protector and a provider, but you need permission to do so? You feel me? This is not a shot towards religions or a call to say come out of them or anything like that. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying understand them, because at the end of the day, when it's time, like you have to see it in a real world perspective. You feel what I'm saying? A lot of men in church seek first the person, above them. And then they ultimately have to get to the pastor to say, what do I have to do? You feel what I'm saying? If a wrong happens to a man in the church, they're going to tell him to pray. If a wrong happens to anybody, they just tell you to pray. They don't teach you to respond accordingly to keep the wrong from happening again. Why? Because vengeance is mine, said the Lord. You're supposed to love your neighbor. You're supposed to turn the other cheek to your enemy. All of this shit. And those things tie into you. And the deeper you get into it, the more and more your warrior spirit is taken away from you. You feel what I'm saying? You, rather than becoming a physical warrior, you become a prayer warrior. And that's cool. If that's what you choose to do, that's cool. But at the same time, the fear of what would come with that now has to be played into it. It now has to be factored into it, because that really will damage your entire expression of your masculine nature, your warrior spirit. You feel me? It'll completely damage your warrior spirit. Like Tyler Perry got the movie Temptation. I think it's called Temptation, where Shorty left her religiously devout husband that she was with since high school for the wild guy. Why? When they were running down the little path and shit, and dude bumped her, and he pretty much beat the dude up. That sent something in her. Like that, damn, she felt protected instantly. You feel me? Nothing stopped, and he, you know what I mean? Like women like that. I was watching an episode of Blackish where, Dre had reached the point of success where you can't respond a certain way. You feel me? You can't respond a certain way. So they were in like a valet line or something, and dude jumped them. And Dre was like, yo, bro, what you doing? And dude responded, he was like, you know what? I ain't even gonna go there with you. You feel me? I'm not even gonna go there with you. But Dre's dad stepped in, and old heads ain't got shit to lose. Like once they retire, it's shit. Like I fucking love old heads. Like once they retire, I know I talk a lot of shit about them in previous videos, but I still love old heads. Because once they retire, they do whatever the fuck they want to do. You feel what I'm saying? So he responded to the dude that was talking to his son and shit. It was like, yo, you calm that shit down. But then Bo seen that energy, and like she seen how Dre didn't respond. And that shit it made her feel she wasn't protected anymore. You feel me? Fuck if you can, like, women, they need to be provided for. Your children, your family. But if they don't feel protected because you've lost your warrior spirit, yeah, you'll lose them a lot faster than if you can't provide for them. You'll lose them a lot faster than if you can't provide for them. You feel what I'm saying? But I'm giving insight as to why we lose that spirit. Because, you know, when we supposedly have things to lose, you know, I reached this point in this job, I can't respond in a certain way. I've gotten this deep into the religious construct. I can't respond. I'm not supposed to respond this way. Yes, you are. That's why you're created. You feel me? That's why you're created that way. When we talk about the carnal shit and we say, okay, a protector and provider, we got to keep that same energy. Your creator, whoever it is, they created you to be a protector and a provider. That means being a killer if you have to. That means being a fighter if you have to. That means being a warrior if you have to when the time permits itself. You can't just say, I'm gonna, like, that's why it gets me, because now when we look at the warrior aspect from this perspective, it's like all of these babies have died. All of these sons have been laid out in the streets. Daughters too, they have been shot and killed. You feel me? There's no repercussion for that. There's no retaliation for that. But what we would do is a motherfucker can kill us and say, you know, we will go up in a courtroom and say, I forgive you. You feel me? I would, like, we have that, like, we lost our fucking minds. We lost our reality. It's like, I want you to know that it's going to be okay. I forgive you for what you did. No. There's an African proverb, you know, and this is why I had to go back into my roots. There's an African proverb that says you return hate with hate. You feel me? And I get all the time, you know, people say, two wrongs don't make a right. You know, it's little cliches that work. Two wrongs don't make a right. However, the societal structure shows you that, you know, they say, you know, violence begets more violence. True. Violence does beget more violence, and people stop there. They don't take it to the next level. Violence begets more violence until the violence is unbearable, and then a peace treaty is made. Pay attention to the major wars that have occurred over the years. Pay attention to that. You know, the forces that be, the superpowers, when they done getting their ass whooped, they sign a peace treaty. They sign a peace treaty when they're done fighting. When they're done, there's okay, this ain't, like, here's a peace treaty, and we'll stop it. You feel me? We can't sign peace treaties because we're forgiving. Our warriors won't go fight. Our warriors don't have, and it's like, so this is why I also say with the barbaric nature, you don't think about that shit, but you would think about how you could respond to yourself, how you could respond to yours, you commit the genocide against yourself. You feel what I'm saying? When we look at black athletes, you feel me? When we look at the athletes, they're pretty much running the game, all of the games, but they're not running the games. You feel what I'm saying? It's strategically done. Like, your contracts are signed at different times for a reason, so you can't break them. Some people's like a team. Some teams, their contract, some of the players, their contract will be 4 years. Some will be 3. Some will be 7. Some will be, like, we keep that so you can't break it. You know, in all actuality, if everybody was really about that shit and was like, yo, we don't want to be controlled. We don't, like, yo, your warrior spirit is gone. If I'm the one funding this shit, I need to be the one funding this shit. Like, I need to be the one that takes this shit to the next level and say, okay, branch off. Like, fuck them. You feel what I'm saying? But we can't do that. We can't do that. Our warrior spirit is gone. And it's like, okay, we'll take everything. You can't take what made this from me. You feel what I'm saying? And that's where the fear comes in. So it's like, at any given moment, let's say within a season, or let's say within a 4-year season, right? All of the top names, whatever it is, they decided, you know what? You know, they have a secret meeting or some shit. Say, you know what? Look, when our contracts end, everybody remain free agents, right? When your contract ends, or they agree, sign a contract for this time frame, right? When that contract ends and I no longer have ties to this, we all take our money collectively, we go start our own league. It's really not that difficult. But you feel me? The livelihood behind it is hard, because now they feel that fear is there. That fear is there. But it goes back into your warrior spirit being stripped. You feel what I'm saying? This shit runs deep. This shit runs deep as fuck. You feel what I'm saying? Because now our warrior class, like there's three classes of the existence of people. And in that sense, you have the warriors, you have the messengers, and you have the thinkers. You feel what I'm saying? The warriors, the messengers, and the thinkers. Like those are the points that protect the civilization, in a sense. You feel what I'm saying? The thinkers are the ones who need to be protected the most. The thinkers are the scientists. Those are the people that push everything forward. You feel what I'm saying? They go down, they break all of the information down, they study, they do all of it, then they give it to the messenger. When they give it to the messenger has to deliver the message to the masses. But they need the militant force. They need the warriors to protect them as they deliver the message, right? Look at where our three perspectives are. Our thinkers go to their institutions to enhance their shit. You feel what I'm saying? To enhance their shit. Our scientists, our scholars, they go to their institutions. Our highest thinking scholars go to their institutions to push them forward. Our messengers become rappers and comedians. And what message are they delivering? The message that they deliver is the one that destroys the very people. You feel what I'm saying? And then the ones who are supposed to be protecting and providing, they're out entertaining the world. You feel what I'm saying? So how are we supposed to get to that point? So then you have, every so often, you have the people that are supposed to push the generations forward. They have to come back and operate as all three to deliver the message. You feel me? You have to be a thinker, you have to be a messenger, and you have to be a warrior, all in one. Because you have to be able to be multifaceted and play all these different levels to get your people to move forward. You feel me? But they have us scattered out because the warriors, our warrior class, they're all playing sports, locked into contracts. They won't do anything. So we don't have anybody to protect them on that point. The messengers, as I said, they're comedians and they're rappers, comedians and musicians. And the ones who are making the top dollar, the ones who are making what messages are they delivering? Self-destruction and humiliation. You feel me? The comedians that talk about conscious shit, the comedians that talk about, shit that makes you think and pushes your thought process forward. You feel me? They're not as pushed, but the ones that do buffoonery, they're practicing dumb shit. They're willing to promote the emasculation of the men and the warrior class. They're pushed forward. The rappers who are talking about, disrespecting towards their women, towards our women, damaging them, and constantly degrading, and then talking about promoting lifestyles of destruction to not only themselves but and the people. They're pushed. You feel me? But the ones who are trying to elevate you and make you think more, trying to deliver the message they're supposed to deliver, you feel me? I just can't really vibe to that shit. It makes you think. You feel me? I'm a battle rap connoisseur. I love fucking punchlines. If you know me, I'm a writer. I'm witty with my words, and that's why, because I like that shit. You feel me? But you look at a battle rap crowd and certain battle rappers, like I'd be like, damn, how the fuck did y'all not catch that bar? But they didn't catch it because they're not thinking about that. But the top rappers, the top pins, they have to infuse killing into the shit. You feel me? The top punchline rappers have to infuse killing into it. The top people, the top expressions of ourselves is about killing each other. You feel what I'm saying? And that's what our culture is. And then our thinkers, you feel me? They're finding cures for cancer. They're finding all this stuff within their system. You feel what I'm saying? Within their system. So, and anybody that's not, and this is where the credential shit comes in, because any one of our thinkers that's not plugged into them, they're discredited by saying, well, you do not have a degree. You were not educated. Like, I should not be educated by somebody when my mental capacity exceeds theirs. You feel me? But at the same time, that's where we're scattered about. You feel me? So our warrior spirit doesn't tap in and say, you know what? I should not be thinking for my enemy. I should not be delivering my enemy's message. I should not be using my physicality for my enemy's progress. But we do. Day in and day out. And that's what happened to our warrior spirit. That's where our warrior spirit is. You feel what I'm saying? It's either transformed to the barbarian or it's completely stripped away to the passive coward who won't do anything but say, yo, forgive them. Constantly. You cannot You cannot continue to forgive people, and you cannot continue to reconcile people with people who continue to do the same shit. They know what the fuck they're doing. They're conscious of it. They make a conscious decision to do the shit. You feel me? Oh, let's be the bigger person. Like, no, like that's that bullshit. That's the bullshit wrapped within a religious construct. You feel me? Because your fear of not making it to a promised place that no one has ever seen causes you to overlook the fucking reality. Where's the logic in that? You dig what I'm saying? Where's the logic in that? But now that takes it back to when I was saying the rationale of the man will always follow the emotionality of the women, because we take our religious perspective, we take these perspectives in based off of how we follow the women, how we follow what the women are presenting to, what the women want presented. You feel what I'm saying? So yeah, the women that like the bad boys, they like them. They like them when they're young. Then they say, okay, now let me stop, But then it's like when a woman gets that bad boy, what she do? She takes him. She starts taking them to church. She starts, changing them slowly, and that aspect starts to die. I'm not blaming women and say women are the reason why, our warrior spirit is gone. Nah, there's so many different other things. But I've observed that when it comes to that full perspective, we have to consider that. The emotionality of the woman is always going to direct the rationale of the man. You feel what I'm saying? And when that is the case, our warrior spirit has to follow that. So we cannot continue to call ourselves warriors, or we cannot be in a space to want to be warriors if we're really not willing to do the warrior shit that will make us warriors. And don't forget to take a moment to go get your exclusive merchandise from Just Scenes merch. At Just Scenes, each piece is specifically crafted with positive imagery and symbolism. From the titles and designs to the descriptions, each style gives you something to feel great about. With everything from hoodies and tees to coffee mugs and tote bags, we have something for the entire family. So be sure to get yours today. Find us on Instagram at Just Scenes merch and get your merchandise right now. So, all in all, granted, there's levels to it. As I said, in Frail 1 and Frail 2, I put so much more detail into all of this. This was just a quick overview in the sense of what I talk about in there. You see what I'm saying? Our warrior spirit is gone. Our warrior spirit has been taken away from us. And those who still have the warrior spirit energy, we operate from the barbarian perspective. You feel me? And this is how we operate. This is how we live through our current stance and our current reality. But it's wrong. It's not right. In order for our warrior spirit, we're gonna have to go back and strip a lot of shit. We're gonna have to go back and rethink and revive a lot within us. You feel what I'm saying? Am I saying drop your religion? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying study your religion 100. Like in the Bible, it says, it's in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, I believe it is. It says, test everything and show yourself approved. I just want everybody to show themselves approved. Don't blindly follow some shit. Because when you look on the surface of everything that's going on, I know women in the church who always say they want a good church going man. They want a good religious man. But yet when they're with the religious man, the relationship is problematic. You feel me? Either he's going to be very misogynistic. He's either is one or two, and there's going to be a series episode on that. But he's either going to be very misogynistic and controlling, or he's going to be very passive and docile. You feel me? Rarely do I see anything outside of that when it comes to the religious construct. When it comes to religious men, I rarely see anything on the outside of that. He's either going to be very misogynistic and controlling, abusive and shit like that, or the motherfucker's going to be very passive and docile. You feel me? Passive and docile. And those points are very important because they tie into your warrior spirit is gone. Your warrior spirit is gone. You cannot convince me that it's not. You feel what I'm saying? And as long as the warrior spirit continues to be attacked, as long as it continues to be, you know, put into these fucked up quandaries, it's gonna be hard for us to progress. You feel me? You feel what I'm saying? We have to teach our sons to be more than athletes when it comes to the warrior aspect, to exhibiting their warrior energy. You know, when you're fighting for something, you have to know what you're fighting for. Don't just know to fight. You feel me? Like we teach our sons to fight growing up. You know, fight. What are you teaching them to fight for? And what are you teaching them to fight with? You feel what I'm saying? Not only your hands, you got to fight with your mind, and you got to fight with your soul. That's where the warrior comes in. If you're just teaching them to fight with their hands, teaching them how to be a barbarian. You know what I'm saying? You're channeling their warrior energy into its negative polarity, not into its actual creation of what it's supposed to be. So, again, no shade, no harm, no foul. Like I fucks with everybody. You feel me? But I gotta objectively speak. You know what I'm saying? I gotta objectively speak. And with certain circumstances that have been occurring, that I've been seeing, it was the perfect time to speak about that. You feel what I'm saying? At some point, you have to realize that a warrior has a vengeful mind. So therefore, a warrior can't forgive everything. You cannot murder my child. You cannot murder my brother. You cannot murder me. And, I'm going to, like, nah. Because think about it, like, I ain't gonna get into that. That's a conversation that I said was going to be held down the line. But I hope everything was, clear, concise, and understood. And again, these just my objective thoughts. You feel what I'm saying? This ain't about manipulation. This ain't about coercion. This ain't about none of the other shit. It's just expressing what I'm saying. But what you have to understand is that after I express it and you see it, then you're like, okay, you now have to make a choice about it. You feel what I'm saying? If we want our warrior spirit to come back, there's things we got to change. There's things we got to adjust. There's things we got to really focus on. 100%. So with that, if you haven't read, because I want you to have the full context, get So Frail, A Reality to Black Male Masculinity, or get So Frail 2, Toxic Femininity, because I cover both everything that I was talked about goes in depth in those 2 points. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at _just_scene_. Also follow the merchandise at Just Scenes Merch, and follow my plant-based class, the Hitting the Raw program, if you're in the process of transitioning into the plant-based lifestyle and you just, want that push, a little bit of the nuggets and the knowledge to help you make it stick. What else? Also, if you feel the need, I do accept donations. I do accept tips. The links are in the description of the podcast, wherever you're viewing the podcast from. And yeah, until we meet again, don't forget. Oh, and also don't forget to check out the previous series to get caught up if you've missed anything, because it's kind of going in sequential order and it's building on to something. So if you just follow along and you'll see everything, just go back and check them out. And until the next episode comes out next week, I will see you all later. Enjoy your life, live, love, and laugh, and continue to move forward. Peace, love, knowledge, and freedom. I'm out.